Hello everyone and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. We start today on the launch pad, actually launching off this little tiny rover that we are going to be using as our new tracking station. This thing cost about 57,000 funds to launch, whereas upgrading the tracking station is nearly 1 million, and this will have the same effective range, roughly, as the actual tracking station. It's a bit of an exploit in the KSP mechanics. Anyway, here it is parked off by the monolith, just ready and waiting to go. It's just a bunch of relay antennas, really. And I have decided what I'm going to be spending our science on. So let's go have a look at the Research and Development Center as to where I've put those points. Now, we've decided to take on advanced electronics as it gives us access to those large relay antennas to help us build that little craft we just showed you. And we're also going to be taking on nuclear propulsion, which gives us access to the extremely efficient nuclear engines. I also accepted a contract to build a station around Kerbal. Pretty straightforward. You can see the parameters there. Sorry, it keeps glitching. Something's wrong with the contracts menu. Anyway, here we are on the launch pad, launching our station. Sorry it's not particularly cinematic. This was recorded at like 12 o'clock at night, I think. So, again, as always, I was not exactly paying attention to cinematics in this regard. This was also the third time I had to launch this because there were some issues with the game's physics engine bugging out a bit. Anyway, you can see we now have the environmental visual enhancements mod installed and working properly. This is the cities visible on the floor there. On the surface, sorry. And yeah, there we go, just putting ourselves in a standard orbit. I'm going for a 100 kilometers circular orbit here, just so it's a nice round number, easy to find and rendezvous with. Anyway, just going into what this station has on it at present, this is just the core, there are no Kerbals present just yet. Got a bunch of solar panels, some fuel cell arrays, and I will go into each particular component in detail now. So starting at the bottom, we have a little poodle engine that is pushing everything forward, obviously, and above that is a fuel tank, it has two docking ports strapped to it. Oh, my mistake. That's the second stage. Never mind. Above the decoupler there, you will notice that we have a fuel tank with two little docking ports and a set of fuel cells on it. That will actually be some fuel storage for the station. We will be expanding that to help refuel craft as they visit it. Above that is a KIS, that is the Kerbal Inventory System Mod's storage container, which is pretty good for storing parts in it, obviously. You know, it's good for keeping things together. Anyway, here's me just circularizing that orbit, and then we'll go back to showing you all the various bits and pieces in here. And yeah, this orbit is actually quite straightforward to get into. I mean, it's not difficult, and 100k is pretty easy to remember. It's kind of a nice one to go and find again. Anyway, here's me just transferring all the fuel, or some of the fuel, back into that stage so that we can decouple it and land it, because we don't need that fuel in the station, obviously, and we can just refuel it. So there we go, so we're going to ditch that, and here's me looking at the station. Unfortunately, it is at night, but you'll see that just above the KIS container there is in fact a science lab. That is the mobile processing lab, and above that is one of the parts from one of the station expanded mods. That is a 6 Kerbal habitat, which is pretty nice. Above that is just a simple storage bay for our drone core. Above that is a adapter, and above that, monopropellant tank followed by another docking port. There are a total of 7 docking ports on that craft. Anyway, here we are launching. It is time to go to MOHO. So here we are launching our MOHO probe, and yeah, we're just going to be banking a standard orbital insertion. You guys know how we do it, getting ourselves into low Kerbal orbit. This is using the Archer 2 launch platform, I believe. This craft is called Archer 3, and it will be going all the way to the inner solar system, the innermost planet in the solar system, which is pretty exciting for me because I've actually never been to MOHO before in the game, so this will be the first time we're doing it. Anyway, there's us ditching all the fairings and things and deploying all our solar panels and such. This craft is a very straightforward one. It is the probe is basically bare bones. It's got all of our science experiments that we could possibly attach to it that are not surface-based attached to it, so it's ready to go. And it's got about 2,500 meters per second of delta V on its own. So it is a pretty impressive little craft. I think in total this thing has nearly 10,000 meters per second, which I actually, in hindsight, I don't think will be enough. I don't know if we'll actually be able to break in orbit of MOHO. We'll have to see. I may have to put myself into a retrograde orbit. I don't do that here, but I was considering perhaps putting myself into a retrograde orbit around MOHO and then using that sort of gravitational pull to help me brake a bit, because I don't know if we're going to have enough delta V to pull ourselves into a stable orbit, or if this is just going to be a flyby. Anyway, there's me just sort of setting up the maneuver node, tweaking myself into a stable orbit, and just time warping around to when we actually are able to fire. And there it is. There's us igniting the engine quite a bit before the maneuver node, actually, because I was worried that we wouldn't have enough oomph in this stage to get there, and I was correct. We actually didn't, so we need to ditch that stage and fire up our much smaller engine just to get us the rest of the way. And in fact, this craft at the time of arrival at Moho will have about 3,000 meters per second of delta V remaining, which should be sufficient, I hope, to get us into even if it's just a really elliptical orbit. I don't mind. I just want to have a low and a high point in the orbit over Moho to get maximum science, and so that we can sort of do any contracts that we happen to come across. And that's it. With all the maneuvers done, this thing will arrive in 110 days over Moho. So now we just sort of let it drift until it gets there. And so, with our Moho probe on its way safely to Moho, we have decided to fulfill a contract we have recently received to put crew on our station. And for that purpose, we will be launching the first in our large and expansive fleet of vessels that I have designed to sort of give us an interplanetary presence in the Kerbal system. And this vessel here, which is named the Stalin 1 Lander, is actually contained up here in this fairing and contains two crew members. We have Bill, the engineer, and Valentina, our pilot. And Bill's going up there to do some assembly up on the station because there's a little bit required. Some assembly required with that station. And yeah, so he's just going to go do that. We'll show that just now. And yeah, this vessel's very simple. It uses the Antilles 6 launch platform that you've seen before, as well, with the second stage. And then, of course, the actual lander itself is contained within the fairings. Now, this vessel is not designed to return to Kerbin ever. It is going to be perpetually left in orbit on the station or on something else. Yeah, it's basically designed for Muna and Minmus runs, and there's sort of all sorts of, it's modular and we can add stuff onto it and take stuff off. It's pretty cool. I've put quite a bit of thought into the way we're doing this. If you have watched Tape Gaming's playthrough of Kerbal Space Program, you will notice that his vessel design and mine are quite similar, and that's because I've drawn quite a bit of inspiration from him. He made an absolutely stunning reusable space program. So with that said, we can have a look here at the station that we need to target. Why can I not select it? Give it to me. Oh, no, can't select it. Okay, well, we need to launch and try and connect with that station, so we're actually going to warp round once more. We're now in the daylight. Let's go all the way around to where we're in the sunlight again. And generally in Kerbal Space Program, you kind of want to launch, if your vessel is in a 100-kilometer orbit. We can select it almost, come on. Come on, you bastards. There we go. Set as target. When they've got the little objective marker on them, they're kind of hard to click on. But you kind of want to launch as your vessel, the target vessel, crosses over this little patch of desert on that continent. It's a very good way to to ensure that by the time you manage to reach your arc of your apoapsis, that you will connect with that vessel if you have a thrust to weight ratio above 1. And ours at present will be 1.4, so it should be fine. So let's throttle up to max, roll the HUDs up and ready. As you can see, I have tweaked our Kerbal Engineer readouts so that all the stuff I usually use is present and I don't have to have that big block over here interrupting your view. And yeah, so I think we're ready to go. 3, 2, 1, launch. Alright, so as described before, here's us launching our little Antilles 5 launcher, or I suppose it's now technically the Antilles 6 with all those extra bits strapped on it, but we're going to put ourselves and our payload into a 100-kilometer orbit using this rocket, and that'll allow us to rendezvous, hopefully, with our station core. More on that later. I go into a bit more depth on that. So we experience a bit of re-entry heating on the way up, but it's nothing too tragic. I mean, we're taking a pretty standard ascent angle here, jettisoning that fairing, which looks seriously cool with that sort of clamshell deploy. I very much like it. There's me using a maneuver node to work out exactly where I need to push my orbit, but I ended up just using the sort of the orbital tracking system for targets that the game includes in the nav ball in order to do most of the work, which I will go into a bit later. So yeah, we let the first stage fall harmlessly back to Kerbin as always, and fire up the second one to close the distance between us and the target. Unfortunately, I don't think I get it on the first pass, but we'll go into that now. Alright, so here we are just fixing up our rendezvous, bringing it in. We are currently at 40 kilometers, 35, 32, 31, bringing that intercept just down, heading towards our target. And voila, we will intercept them at 2.5 kilometers, traveling at 100.4 meters per second at the end of the next orbit. So we just need to zoop around the Kerbin, one time the Kerbin. It's not the Earth. We need to zoop around Kerbin. Oh crap, and I'm in the atmosphere. I need to just push myself out of it very quickly. Let's just raise our apoapsis. We can deal with our intercept just now. Let's just bring ourselves outside of there. There we go. Okay, we should be able to just zoom through the atmosphere harmlessly then. And yes, we are gaining altitude. Okay, cool. We don't want our solar panels ripping off. And then once we are outside of the atmosphere safely, perhaps at apoapsis here, we can tweak that orbit, or perhaps even sooner. If we are quick, we could possibly tweak the orbit sufficiently here in order to bring ourselves into... No, that's not the way. Oh, how are we gonna do this? I think it will be easier just to go for the secondary intercept there. Let's just accelerate. As you can see, I botched this intercept a bit, but it's not the end of the world. There we go. Now we're getting a bit closer. How close are you? 24 kilometers. That's pretty close. 24.2. Let's just play with the maneuver node a bit. 15. Cycle that a bit more. 9.1. And we'll be moving at 10 meters per second at that point. That's easy. We can just accelerate directly towards it once we get there. And then that'll put us at 26 kilometers. No. 23. Let's just bring that back down. I went too far. 18. And now we're at 17.7. 11 kilometers. Oh, getting close, getting close. 7.4. We could probably get that a bit closer even. 3.9. I feel like Icarus reaching for the sun here. That looks almost into... There we go. 1.7. That brings us within physics range, which means we can switch between vessels if need be to do some orientation. There we go. 1.7 kilometers. So we need to... but will that bring our periapsis below... will that bring it below it? No. So it will still be above the atmosphere. That's very important. Okay, so we're going to encounter that maneuver node in 9 minutes. So let's just align ourselves with the correct orbit. Boom. Sorry I'm doing this real time with you guys. For those of you who've played the game, I'm sure this is quite boring. You know how to do a rendezvous. But for those of you that don't, this could be quite interesting. I will probably do an actual tutorial on how to do this, because it's one of the more challenging things to get right in this game. Okay, so now we've got that, we can just warp around our orbit till we get there. Basically what you want to do is wipe off your relative velocity to your target by the time you arrive at the same point in your orbits. And you kind of want to push your orbits together so that they intersect, and then once you've reached that point of intersection, you kind of want to wipe off the remaining relative velocity. So here we have our vectors set to follow the target orbit. That is the retrograde, that is the back basically of our target, and this is the retrograde of its orbit. So if we were to fire this way, we would be accelerating towards it, because we're accelerating towards the back of that vessel. If we offset our thrust by this sort of, about this distance, we will push our velocity vector to be in line with the rear of our target, or at least the rear facing direction in the orbit of the target. It's kind of hard to describe 3D things over a 2D platform, I must say, like the nav ball here. So let's just roll that down. Okay, pushing it, heading at 265, and there we go. As you can see, I've now moved the orbital retrograde vector to be directly over the retrograde side of our target, that is the space station. So now, basically, if I were to fire directly here, I would wipe off all of our relative thrust. And as you can see, just by moving our velocity vector in line with our target, we have now achieved a separation of only 0.8 kilometers and a relative speed of 19.1 rather. So we're just going to warp till we're a lot closer. In fact, we should actually be in physics range now, getting quite close to our target. Let's look around in the sky for it. There it is there. So we're going to be zooting past very quickly if we don't do something. So we're going to wipe off that relative velocity now. Again, pushing our vector to be in line with the craft that we are trying to approach. So let's push. There we go. And now we're basically almost not moving relative to the target. We are now moving at only 0.9 meters per second towards our target. Because if we flip over here to the front side, you will see that our velocity vector, and now we need to pull it rather than push it. You push the retrograde and pull the prograde vectors. We now need to pull ourselves towards the target. And if I just come out of map view, there we go. So I pushed the wrong button. You'll be able to see that we are heading directly towards it. Just like that. Let me turn off the music a second. Hold on. Alright, just like that. Now we are heading at 2.7 meters directly towards the target. So we can actually speed that up a bit just so it happens within the same amount of time. And you can see that our better burn time mod will tell us that we will arrive at the target in 88 seconds. So rather than accelerate, we're just going to time warp towards it. And when we get nice and close, we're going to flip ourselves around and burn off all of that remaining relative velocity. We can also tweak this engine to be a lot lower thrust so that we make smaller changes to our velocity rather than big ones. Otherwise, we're going to end up shooting back in the other direction, which would be no good. Okay, now that we've got that, we can set this to control from here so that we can target directly from our vessel. I will, of course, explain everything about this craft once we are docked and ready to go, or at least once the or at least once the rendezvous maneuver has been fully completed. Okay, so wiping off the remainder of that velocity because we are at a delicious... Oh, what are we? Where's my relative inclination, relative velocity? We're close to it. We're probably about 50 meters away from the thing. In fact, actually, if we set that as our target, I want to try and set that docking node. Actually, where do we want to plug this thing in? We'll stick it on the side. Let's set that docking node there as our target. Awesome. So now we can aim directly at the docking node. In fact, and what we're going to do is tab over to our space station, set control from here, and order this thing to rotate directly towards... We want to set again... Oh, it's facing the wrong way. My mistake. Let's just flip this craft around. We can now enable RCS and use our thrusters to do the rest. We're just going to... I want to dock the fuel tank that's attached to this thing to the station, just to do a bit of refueling. Sort of two birds, one stone type of situation. But we're going to press R to enable RCS, and using our I, K, J, and L keys, we can adjust our sort of, I don't know how to describe this, up, down, left, and right vectors, and then H and N is your forwards and backwards using the RCS. That's probably the simplest way I can put it, I think. There we go. So now we're heading directly towards it. So we can flip to this craft and set that... control it. Unfortunately, of course, this is happening at night because I hate you guys and I hate showing you good things. Good footage is for the weak, right? So now we can use this to rotate ourselves, boom, to face directly towards our target so that the other one will just basically drift directly into us, which will be pretty cute. Nice, just like that. Perfect, and then we're going to switch back to the smaller craft to make the fine-tuning adjustments because it's a bit of a bitch to do with larger craft. Okay, as you can see, our velocity vector is now drifting slightly, so we're going to want to push that down and maintain ourselves facing directly center. Just disable RCS to tweak our position, and then re-enable it to, there we go, put us back on course. And we're basically just going to drift together at very, very slow speeds. Coming in, nice and slowly here. These docking ports are magnetic, so they will auto-snap once we get close. This is probably a nightmare for those of you playing this on console. It's a nightmare on PC, I mean, with the keyboard and mouse as it is. But let's not tweak it too much. We're probably going to clip. And a good idea is to turn off SAS just before you clip so that it doesn't freak out and sort of try and flip itself over, which they do tend to do. And we're docked! Dunzo! We are docked and ready to go. Okay, so now what we can do is, right off the bat, we're going to warp around till it's daytime so we can see what the hell's going on here. And there we go. You can now see the beginnings of our station. So before we do anything, we're going to transfer the remainder of this fuel into here, which for whatever reason isn't making it through there. Oh, I don't think I enabled crossfeed on that decoupler. Let's do that. There we go. Enable crossfeed, and now we can pump it all in. So we're going to put it all in here, except for a little bit that we'll use to deorbit this thing. Perfect, just like that. There we go. So now we've got, somewhat of a tank filled. That's good with me. I don't think there's anything else of use we can take out of this, so we're just going to ditch this, not jettison shroud, sorry, we want to decouple that node, and we're going to switch over to this thing, point it in this direction, just get it out of here a little bit. Let's just get, a little bit of control back, point this thing retrograde, and get it to send itself back to Kerbal. However, I just need to put my thrust back up, because that was rather low, and there we go, it will drift safely back to Kerbal. So, now that we are back on our station, we can have a look at the craft we have brought with us. So, unfortunately, it is upside down. Perhaps I can fix that by, there we go, flipping my camera. So at least now only horizontal. We have this little lander. It consists of a lander can, a large battery, the smallest 2.5 meter fuel tank there is, which we can re-enable, and a bunch of solar panels, communications antenna, and that's it. There's no science equipment. There's a bit of monopropellant, and that's it, literally. Because the science package is going to be attached to this separate piece here, which keeps it nice and modular. So these are all of our science experiments attached by docking nodes, so we can unattach this craft if we want to and attach the science package to another craft. And so doing, we don't have to take the same craft everywhere. We can just bring this little package along, and we have all of our scientific experiments, including surface ones, which is pretty damn cool. Also, it's nice to have this on the station, because that means we can... Actually, let's extend that antenna before I forget. Because that means that we can immediately put all of the low-carbon science directly into our mobile processing lab without having to bring up a craft to do it specifically, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so that's it, literally. That's all we've brought up today. It cost us about 150,000 funds. It was nightmarish, but it's time to crew the station as we promised we would. So let us transfer. We could do this internally, but it's more fun to get them out and make them float. We're going to take an EVA report as well, which we will be stashing in the science lab once we get on board. Let's go this way. And where is the nearest hatch? I think it's on the other side, isn't it? Oh, we can get in the science lab. It's fine. Bill is not a scientist, so he won't like it in there very much, but he'll live. They do quite enjoy these large habitation modules. Quite a lot, actually. The little Kerbals are quite happy to stay around in them. It's not as... They're only... It's not quite as efficient as the Hitchhiker's Guide, as the Hitchhiker module. It's not quite as efficient as stacking 2 of those on top of each other, because that gives you 8 Kerbals. This only gives you 6. But it just, it just looks a bit better, and I wasn't too fussed. I only had to bring, like, space for 2 people. So we're going to bring, just to show you guys how to do it, you can just right-click on here and say Transfer Crew. And then Valentina Kerman, you can just click there to transfer directly into that pod. So now we have a pilot in orbit as well as an engineer, and we are able to get out now and do all of our little engineering tasks that we have been waiting to do. Now our storage bay is down here, so we're going to get Bill to clamber down and extend this ladder. There we go, so we can keep climbing. The less RCS work you have to do, the better, because the odds of you smacking into your solar panels and smashing them are pretty high. In fact, actually, let's fold these away. I see nothing wrong with doing that now, just to be safe. And that's, of course, why we have included the retractable... Oh, we got a bit of tilt. Not sure what's going on there. Let's just tab over and see why we've lost SAS. Okay, there we go. It was because Valentina had... decided she wasn't going to be in control anymore, so the ship just went for a bit of a ride. Okay, so we are going to take out this... let's equip... Oh, we need to open his inventory, sorry. My apologies. And you have, there we go, the spanner equipped, so we're going to equip that. And then we're going to pull out this SK container. There we go, he is carrying it now. And we want to drag that. How do I do this? Oh, right, there we go. And we drag that and hold H to press mount. Click, and now we have the storage container attached to the side. So I'm just going to do that 3 more times. And we're going to click one on this side. Boom. And this is the cool thing about this the KIS mod, is that you can bring inventory systems within inventory systems, and it's just all so cool and so great. So let's just zoot over this way, and we're gonna drop this one right on there. Gloop. And let's just open up the inventory again and take the other one. Nice. And bring this down here, and just drag and oh crap! No, don't put it in the wrong place. Can I fly? I can't fly if I'm trying to place it, can I? Escape to cancel. There we go. Okay, now I can turn again. Yeah, look, I mean, the attachment system leaves something to be desired, but I don't understand why it's not in the stock game yet, to be honest. We also put L to put our lights on so that we can see things. And let's just drag that container on, and boom, snap it. Nice. Okay, so we have all 4 of our container pods out and installed, which is pretty cool. What else have we got in here? I actually can't remember. Let's have a look in the inventory. We have some lights, we have some more solar panels in case we don't have enough power production, some more batteries, and plenty of tools and things, which is great. In fact, we're actually going to go ahead. Do we have... Yeah, we have struts... Oh, let me close that before I break it. See, this is what I'm afraid of, because I'm about to smash into that solar panel, and then we have to throw it away and grab another one. But what I was trying to say was I want to use some of these struts. So we're going to go ahead and attach this one right there on that craft, and then we want to link it, right, all the way up to here, just to really reinforce, boom, that connection. So now this thing won't wobble around when we bring other craft in and the physics load in and it all explodes and everything goes to hell and everyone dies. It'll be great, you know. Well, now it'll be great because that's not going to happen. Because Kerbal Space Program is cruel, and that's exactly what happens all the time. Okay, did you attach? You did. Let's just right-click, link. float up using our RCS controls, right click on this one, which I've already included. You can include these on your vessels in the VAB, I just forgot to do it on this craft. I've done it for all of our fleet craft though. So let's attach that. Oh Christ, what have I done? I broke the station in half. How in the fresh fuck did I do that? Holy shitballs. What have I done? Oh god. What fresh hell is this? Did I just deconstruct the whole thing? Is that what I did? Can I do that here? I'm gonna be quick loading here, so I'm not really too fussed. Let's just drag another one of these so this thing leaves me alone. Like that. Can I uninstall this? How did I do that? I'm just so impressed. You know? I'm just so impressed. Huh. Okay, well, you guys have seen that. I'm gonna quick load and come back and do all of this again. Anyways, but yeah, so that's something that can happen, I guess. So I will bring you back once I've fixed my mistake. Alright, so there we go, and we are done. We are back to where we were. You know, Bill is a strong man. He's a man of great gravitas. Not only is he able to swing an entire space station loaded with fuel and supplies merely by climbing on a ladder, but he is also able to tear the very craft he climbs upon in half with his bare little Kerbal mittens. So yeah, there we go. We are basically done. I also added some lights. I took them out of the inventory and stashed them on, put these blocks back, opened up the solar panels, and sent off our booster again. Yeah, I put a lot more fuel back in here, though I realized how little it needed to leave. And so, yeah, that's our station so far. We have one ship in orbit. I've also managed to successfully strut this thing up. When we decouple, these struts will auto-snap, then they'll break off, and then we can just reattach them next time we land. And this just makes it a crap ton more stable, and a lot less likely to rip itself apart at later stages. We will, of course, need to be expanding our fuel capacity that we have stored in here, and yeah, I've got a craft lined up to do just that, but they cost almost 200,000 funds each. They're quite large expansions on the storage. Which will really turn this into like a supply depot, and then of course we'll have life support attachments and, you know, all sorts of things to turn this station into basically a mini KSC but in space. So all we'll need to do is ferry supplies up, and our fleet of ships will become almost self-sufficient, especially once we unlock mining. And we can go off to other worlds and, you know, extract their resources and exploit their labor, just like Africa. What? No, who said that? I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.